Look, there are people who are very controversial and divide society. Mr. Savarkar is one of those, but certainly one can't just gloss over certain facts because they don't fit the convenient box that the left or any other regime wants to place Mr. Savarkar in. That would also be a travesty, would it not?
No, absolutely. And good evening, Rahul, and good evening to all my panelists, especially to my good friend Vikram Sampath. It really is a pleasure and honor to be sharing the panel with him. And talking about Savarkar
in front of him is like carrying coal to Dhanbad. So I hope he pardons my ignorance on the subject. But you're absolutely right, Rahul. Look, distorted histories leave wounds that both medicine and time cannot heal. And very few have been distorted more than Savarkar's. Now, there is no doubt that Savarkar was a fearless freedom fighter before he was incarcerated in Kalapani, and that he suffered terribly there, terribly. Prolonged spells of solitary confinements and brutal torture lasting for 6 months and more. So I'm ambivalent towards his mercy petitions that were written at times pleading only for his release as well as at other times for release of all political prisoners. That said, it is also a fact that he had already written multiple mercy petitions beginning 1911 by the time Gandhi advised Savarkar's brother that Savarkar should write another mercy petition in 1920, as Vikram said, and also wrote an appeal to the British to release Savarkar. Another fact that the Chauthi failed leftists mocking Savarkar ignore is that the co-founder of Communist Party of India, Dange, also wrote mercy petitions to the British, saying that he is always going to be servant of the king. And unlike Savarkar, he wasn't even thrown in solitary for a day, even on months. There is also the fact, Rahul, that once released, Savarkar asked Indians to join the British Army, but then so did Mahatma Gandhi. Savarkar was also against the Quit India movement, but then so were Rajaji and Ambedkar, who said, and I quote, "The Quit India movement is both irresponsible and insane, showing bankruptcy of statesmanship," unquote. And for those who say you needed to be thrown in jail by the British if you were a true freedom fighter, I ask an uncomfortable question. Was Dr. Ambedkar ever thrown in a jail by the British? And if not, why not? There is also the fact, Rahul, that Savarkar was a bold social reformer and, unlike Gandhi, was vociferously against the caste system. Also, his views on Islam are astonishingly similar to the views of Ambedkar. And we don't call Ambedkar an Islamophobe, do we? But then there is another side to Savarkar. Let me quote Sardar Patel in 1948, quote, "It was the fanatical wing of the Hindu Mahasabha directly under Savarkar that hatched the conspiracy to kill Gandhi and saw it through," unquote. Savarkar was acquitted because the approver statement that Savarkar blessed Godse and Apte with Yashasvi Bhava could be corroborated. Court never called as witnesses Savarkar's bodyguard and secretary who would have contradicted Savarkar's testimony. And in 1964, new evidence emerged through Tarun Bharat editor Ketkar's admission. The Kapoor Commission, as you know, was set up and it concluded that Savarkar was, quote, "directly involved in Gandhi's assassination," unquote. Rahul, just 30 seconds. Ultimately then, no political activist, Rahul, is without another side. You can call it grey or dark. It is just that one has to judge objectively the extent of it. Mao killed 63 million of his own people, and he's on currency notes. Mass murderers Stalin and Lenin are still worshipped. So is Churchill, who starved 4 million Indians to death. That's why I am against eulogizing political leaders, because to honor them is almost always a political or an ideological call.